Thoughts on that execution question mark, Saunders?
Did not go well for me.
That is an understatement. Welcome to the second episode of Mol België, Season 14 recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Armstrong, and joining me as always is the Canadian who we're worried after this week's result might just be a bit simple, the only idiot here, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who's always impressed when they can keep it up for more than 7 seconds, David Bindley.
It is a very good morning.
It is the best morning, because this has never happened before. You are so lucky that we didn't just discard the leftovers last week, Saunders.
Did I lose all three people in one episode?
Have you only just got it? Yes, you did. Your entire original team went down in flames in week 2.
Now I know how Drees' brain feels.
As a general rule, I do not like spoilers on this show. I try and avoid them religiously. And Bindles is like, I know you don't want spoilers, but can I tell you what happened? And I'm just like, oh no, what happened? Did I lose? And he's just like, no, Saunders did. Everyone.
I laughed so hard when I saw that.
Yeah, because just spoilers for the First Suspicion stats, Saunders. The leftovers did not get many points. In fact, only 2 people in First Suspicions did not get a First Suspicion. One of those was Vincent, on your team, and one of those was Abigail, now on your team.
There is a very high chance that in a game with like 3-person teams, you're going to lose the first 5 people.
Yeah. So, good day had by all already. Before we, spend the next hour or so gloating about Saunders being a shit predictor, have you had good weeks?
I caught a slight cold a few days ago.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I'll be muting my microphone every now and then, but everybody in Vernon has been getting sick, and a lot of people are way worse off than me. I feel like I got off easy.
I'm not sure it's possible to be worse off than you at the moment.
I don't know. I mean, we had Yanis really put his heart into a Robbie Williams song, and then there was a whole scene of him hiding in a closet. So seems to be a lot going on here in this episode.
Look, we've all hidden in a closet at some point in our lives.
You know how COVID was caused by bats? Was Vernon's cold caused by horses?
I knew there was going to be a horse flu, but I don't. There hasn't been any evidence yet of a horse flu.
Are you patient zero of equine flu, Saunders?
I don't know, but symptoms include being terrible with predicting who the mole is after one episode, apparently.
Yeah, because I'm sharing a hotel room with you in about 5.5 weeks. I do not want equine flu, thank you. On the subject of said equines as well, you withheld some information from us last week when we were discussing your horse botherer neighbour, because it turns out that not only had he been found, he was in court a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, he was. I didn't look exactly at how that kangaroo court, or rather a horse court, went, but...
Yeah, don't bring kangaroos into this.
As the Vernon Morning Star called him, a hairy palm pervert Logan Saunders was charged.
Gotta love April 1st.
No, that wasn't April 1st. That was just me knowing how to edit news articles to make it look like you're even more of a hairy palm pervert than you are. Did you go and see the Mario movie with your nephews doing a complete handbrake turn there?
Yeah, that's quite the 180. No, this upcoming Sunday we're going.
Okay, cool.
It got too busy with it being Easter weekend and all.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I saw it last Thursday. I don't think it was as good as the first one. My friends disagreed. I did end up getting the world's most ridiculous popcorn bucket, and I don't even like popcorn.
Yeah, you got the Yoshi bucket they've been advertising.
Didn't get the Yoshi one. My friend got that. I got the Luma one instead, which lights up, and it's massive.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't resist.
Yeah, one of my other students, I teach her 1 hour every week, and she plays all of the Mario video games. So she went and saw the movie. So I got a fairly detailed critic review from her for the first 5 minutes, and she also said she enjoyed it, but it wasn't as good as the first one. She wanted more Rosalina in it.
Yeah, the first one was a solid like 8.5, 9 out of 10 film. This one was sort of 7, 8, I would say. Too much water, something like that.
Well, it's similar to the Sonic trilogy trajectory, right? Where you introduce one or two extra characters from the franchise into each movie. That's just going to be inevitable.
Yeah, because the cliffhanger of the first one was the Yoshi egg hatching.
Yeah.
I know your student said there was not enough Rosalina. My review on that subject is not enough Luma Lee. Because you've seen the first one, haven't you, Saunders?
Yeah.
Luma Lee is the depressed Luma who was absolutely there for the adults and was incredibly nihilistic and made me laugh every single time. And she's only in the post-credit scene. Spoilers.
That's disappointing.
It's worth it, but she was by far the best character in the first film.
I like how the critics are giving it negative reviews. It's a
oh yeah,
and then people are reacting to those reviews saying, well, critics didn't really like it all that much. And I'm thinking they're not trying to go for an Oscar here.
No, it's a solidly fun film. It's just not Oscar bait.
It's been very funny sort of watching all of like the gaming people get into a world where like critics don't feel obliged to give games like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 every time. and they're like, the movie critics do not give a shit that this is a video game. Like, they care about the movie. And the movie is adequate at best. But, sometimes adequate is fun.
Yeah, the first one was way better than it had any right to be, basically. And I think that's probably what a lot of the fact that I'm quite high on the first film comes from, is the fact that I went into it with very low expectations and was like, actually, this is a pretty good film. This is far better than I expected it to be. Whereas the second one, it wasn't as good, but it was fun enough. It was worth the money that I paid for it.
And a lot of people who are, engaging online talking about it are in their probably teens and early 20s. And they do not remember what it was like to grow up with video game movies in the mid to late 90s and very early 2000s.
No, they do not.
I bet most of them did not see the original Mario Brothers movie from whenever it was 90 or 9, I guess 91.
Yeah, I think the original Mario Brothers film came out before I was born.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember though, when we rented it, we accidentally melted the VHS copy in the back of my sister's car during the summer one time.
Huh.
We just left the cassette tape there by accident, and it was like completely melted. And I'm thinking, I don't think the video rental store is going to be too upset that the original Mario Brothers film got damaged. I don't think it was really a hot ticket item by that point.
Well, it was a very hot ticket item because it was left in the car.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Yeah, Logan, what do you think it is? The E.T. video game?
No, we didn't put it in a landfill.
Also, I swear that I didn't do this deliberately last week. It was a very busy episode last week, as we're well aware. So I apologise, Fuzzy, for not doing this last week. Average age of this season is 36.8, which goes down to 36.4, including the Yans, compared with 38.3 in Argentina, 33.4 in South Africa, 37.7 in Mexico, 35.1 in Vietnam, 34.6 in Greece, 31.9 and 33.3 in Germany, 34.6 and 34.3 in Canary Islands, 33.4 and 33.6 in Arizona, 35.8 in Sicily, and 35.7 in Thailand. Also, we didn't get your contestant descriptions last week, Saunders, if you want to provide those.
Yeah, let's see. What were my descriptions? Oh, yeah, Julie, I put long, straight brown hair. Wout, I put, or Woot, curly hair with a thin mustache. Kristof, funny French-style mustache with short curly hair. Karla, older lady with middle-aged brown hair. Dries, thin, flat-top hair like he is a cop. Maxim, I put tall, wavy hair. Abigail, I just put black woman. Mite, I put South Asian woman. Vincent, man with glasses, also a critic. Isabel, cheerful, blonde-haired woman. Yana, Russian-looking woman. Yanis, blonde-haired man with shaggy hair. Nothing too crazy this season in terms of
Nothing
description.
cancelable.
Yeah.
Also, because I actually care about this podcast, I have watched both Cafe de Mol episodes and both behind the scenes episodes, mainly to get more information. Have something to pull them up on with Cafe de Mol straight away, which is that Dennis, the host of Cafe de Mol, he did like a 5-minute segment after episode 1 going, where do you think the mole would want to be in these challenges? And I'm like, Gilles told us not to focus on that. You obviously haven't been briefed. Stop asking that question.
Well, so I guess some people just don't learn after 10 years of watching this show.
Yeah, me, that's the problem. Also, Lancelot and Toos were the ex-Mole candidates in the audience, and Lancelot asked the question that I think Fuzzy raised on Discord, which is what happened if 9 of the Mole books are saved and 1 was left on the beach, which is something we probably need to ask Jill about. Because mathematically, both Yanis and Yana wouldn't have been able to come back then. Would there have been a hidden tiebreaker where only one of them could come back?
You'd assume there'd be some sort of contingency, but they just don't want to waste time on every single contingency they have planned.
But it is something that...
But it's worth asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I presume it would have been something like there were 5 targets on the gate. Whoever hit the most targets got to come back first.
Yeah, probably.
Especially, was there an odd number? There was 5, weren't there?
Yeah, there were 5.
Yeah, that'd be the easiest way to do it.
It may very well have been that was the tiebreaker on who got to pick the Mole book first or something as well.
Oh, yeah, they pick and then I see, yeah.
Yeah, because I can't remember which order they actually picked them in. But obviously one would have picked before the other. And also Gilles did do his sort of contestant introduction for the Yans as to why the Mole may have picked them. And apparently Yana has a Brevet Junior Para Commando which is basically like, it seems like it's sort of Paro Commander cadets and involves having to do 4 parachute jumps from 300 meters, amongst other things.
Huh.
So, on paper, yeah, she probably would be the sort of person you'd pick. And apparently Yanis's hobbies include bike packing. And as we found out in this episode, he loves to sing.
To Robbie Williams.
And has I would say, genuinely very good voice.
Yeah. It's just Robbie Williams.
As much as anybody singing Robbie Williams can have a good voice.
And in terms of the behind-the-scenes stuff, which we did discuss last week, the fact they're doing sort of a 10-minute behind-the-scenes of each episode, I'm convinced there's going to be a clue hidden in these, by the way. It just feels like the sort of thing. But my favourite thing about the entire thing is obviously it uses the normal de Mol theme, but the editor who is hosting the behind-the-scenes sings it himself.
Oh, that has to... Maybe that's a clue.
Yeah, maybe. Also, we were lied to by Gilles last week. The Mole's decision about who was getting isolated and picking Yanis and Yana was actually done before they left Belgium, because immediately as soon as they get off the plane, they went straight to the island to do that introduction with Gilles saying, you're not actually part of the group right now. So we were lied to last week.
That doesn't sound like Gilles Costa to lie to us.
I know. I will be pulling him up on that in 6 weeks' time.
He lies with his eyes.
Also, they both went to the same music festival 2 weeks before the filming of this series. They both went to an electronic music festival called Voodoo Village in Grimbergen, where Yana's from. Which then means that this was the end of September they filmed. Just for people who love me pointing these things out.
So that's why the weather looks decent, but the water is freezing.
Yes. Also, this may change your opinion on Suspicions this week, Saunders. We find out that Julie has ADHD.
Oh.
And I would say, knowing a show like this, I'm not sure whether they would make someone with ADHD the Mole.
Or is that what they want you to think?
Well, exactly, yeah. Depends what kind of ADHD and all that sort of stuff, obviously, but the execution chairs have pointed out that they are new and blue, and I went back and Isabel's Mole book is the bright blue one, just in case that is a clue. Something that'll amuse you, Vincent told his daughters that he was volunteering in Tanzania for 3 weeks. at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro,
Did he have to clean the toilets?
only for a passerag. And especially after this week's episode of WIDM, that might have been preferable to watching this week's episode of WIDM. Because, God, it was boring. I know you've not watched it yet, Bindles, but, no loss.
I'm watching it as soon as we finish this, and I am not looking forward to it.
It's a very typical episode 6.
Yeah.
Something that will interest you, Saunders, is that if he makes it to the end, you can discuss this with Yanis, but he does bring up to the group that he wonders what it would be like to be a vet and to put your hand up the arse of a horse or a cow.
Okay, Charlotte Mirna.
I'm not even joking that he actually said that. I laughed a lot when I watched that right before this recording. And even better, Julie says she's done it before because she has a horse, and her vet asked if she wanted to try it anyway. These are your people, Saunders.
I can't believe they're pandering to Logan fucking Saunders of all people.
In the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I don't know whether they're genuinely going, oh, I wonder if Saunders is going to find out about this.
They're taking behind a bit too literally, I think.
Well, we've seen the news in Vernon. Gilles Van Bull did the briefing to Karla and Dries about them being buried up to their necks, and they had to wear blindfolds for it because they weren't allowed to see the excavator, because they wanted the natural reaction of, oh shit, there's a piece of machinery driving towards our heads. Dries also opens a beer with his mole book, which is very impressive, and Yanis manages to do the same thing but with a table leg. And after they got executed, Karla bought Kristof a bottle of champagne, and Karla also forgets her phone code after a week of not using it, because her husband normally has to remind her what it is.
I remember there was somebody in my high school like that, where he didn't know his home phone number, so they had to look it up for him.
Yeah, this is a 4-digit code, though.
Yeah.
Well, you never have to call yourself Logan.
Only because someone's using the internet at the same time. And final thing from me, I would also be remiss if I didn't say happy belated birthday to both Wilson, Fuzzy's dog, who is adorable, and Tim from the Mol Ohio, whose birthday it is on the day we're recording this, and he'll hear it 2 days later.
Who is also adorable. You're welcome, Tim.
Anything else for the preamble from you guys?
I saw a horse during the week.
Did you? Did you do a Saunders and stick your hand up his arse?
No, thank God. I went to Melbourne Museum just to get out of the house, really. And because it was, when I do all my holidays, I book through booking.com. And I was looking at the thing and I realized I'm not that many bookings away from like the biggest level of the discounts. And I'm like, I might as well just go and do like cheap touristy trap sort of stuff. And instead of having to pay for a hotel room, $20 to get in the museum, and then I'm done. So I went to Melbourne Museum and saw Farlap, the big racehorse. Surprisingly huge, even for a horse. And genuinely, like, I was trying to take a photo of it, and the glass case they've got him in is like so reflective that the only way I could get even close to a decent photo is to basically stand behind him and take a photo of the horse's ass.
Ah, the Saunders position, as we call it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm trying not to remind myself of Euro. But yeah, like, supposedly this is like the biggest museum in the Southern Hemisphere, and walking in there, you kind of feel it. Like, there's there's the usual stuff you get in a museum, like, hey kids, look at all my fancy rocks, and the dinosaurs and all that sort of stuff. Saw apparently the largest Triceratops fossil in the world, which is smaller than I expected. It's probably only about the size of like one of those VW combis, the big like hippie cars from the 70s. Saw that, walked through all the bugs and everything. I'm like, I've been to museums before. I've seen the butterflies. I don't care anymore. But I went up to this other room that was basically like the history of Melbourne. They had Farlap. They had like really old wooden roller coaster seats that genuinely, if I'd been on a roller coaster with those seats, I probably would have shit myself because they did not look safe at all.
Yeah.
Like really old, like vintage steam coach. And I in my head, I'm just going through like that tongue twister about the sperm whale piss because like it looked exactly the same. Yeah, it was a fun week.
Good.
Yeah.
You do anything apart from become patient zero of equine flu, Saunders?
Yeah, went to my uncle's house just outside of town for Easter. Saw a lot of relatives I don't get to see too often, so that's always fun.
Also, I ate Five Guys just to troll Fuzzy again. And I don't know why I do it to myself because the food is expensive and not very good.
The chips are nice. I'll
The
say
chips
that.
are nice.
I would go there if there was like a teleport that would take me there from my house to a Five Guys.
They're very useful in Antwerp as well, as we both well know, Saunders.
Yeah, I think we've. I think I go there at least once every time I'm in Antwerp.
Yeah, I think I do twice normally because usually I get off the train and go, right, I need some food now. I'll go to Five Guys because it's right next to the station, and then I end up inevitably chilling there for a couple of hours editing the Diary of a Mole finale episodes.
It's a good spot to hang out at either just after you get off the train or before you have to head to the airport from the train station.
Yes, it is.
Five Guys, not a sponsor of this podcast, surprisingly.
But we would very much be interested if they were. If they want to give us free Five Guys, you know where we are. So, previously, 10 Flemish strangers found themselves tied up on a Portuguese fort and had to try and win their place on the mainland. Thanks to the sharpshooting of intruders, Yanis and Yana, Abigail and Vincent were left behind. In Porto, the group was split up and had to either drink port, catch port, or spot Wally. At the first test, Maita was the first to be eliminated, and the episode ended as Vincent and Abigail returned to the game. Question we didn't really mention last week as well. Will there be any sort of clue hidden in these contestant introduction graphics, or the fact that they have slightly tweaked the graphics for this season?
Oh, they always do graphics clues because they're the toughest clues to catch.
Yeah, because the logo itself has slightly been tweaked. If you notice, I actually clocked it when they changed the Instagram profile picture, but yeah, the logo itself has been slightly tweaked, and the contestant intros this week are a little bit different than they normally do them in format. Not a huge amount, but enough.
I think there is a clue in there. I just don't know what it is or where it could be.
Yeah. And we cut back to day one with Jill telling Abigail and Vincent that their journey has not ended yet, and one of them will get the chance to return. One of them has a suitcase with 2,000 euros in it, while the other has a suitcase containing minus 2,000 euros. Whoever joins the group will put whatever's in their suitcase into the pots, and they will take exactly the same test that everyone else did, and whoever does best will rejoin the group, but the group can influence it by giving one of them 2 Passfragen. They have 10 minutes to decide who to give them to. 6 hours earlier, each of them was challenged to pour Gilles a glass of port, but the first who manages to pour it will win, and earns the briefcase with 2,000 euros. However, they are not provided with a corkscrew, but only an assortment of random items, and they each have 20 seconds at a time to try and open their bottle before their opponent has a chance.
Jill really tried to drink as much port as he could before they left the city.
I was so torn with the banner this week because we have Gilles getting increasingly more awkward sat at that table with an empty glass of wine, or we have Gilles standing in the sea. I went for the sitting awkwardly at the table, but the standing in the sea was very close.
Gilles was watching them and he was that close to basically just standing up, getting disappointed, being like, okay, we're going to matches.
Whoever goes next, I'm just going to give you a corkscrew. For the love of God, we've only got 6 hours here.
I've only got 6 hours and I've lost my buzz, guys. You know I can't host this show sober.
This challenge was basically the return of a de Mol België favourite of, here's a random science experiment.
It's been a couple of seasons, hasn't it?
It has. They've not done one for a little while, but occasionally they do have challenges that just basically devolve into, do you know this science experiment and how to win it?
And they're always usually pretty funny.
Yeah, this was genuinely very interesting.
Yeah, like they're never, highlights of the season, but you never feel like you've wasted time watching it.
No.
This show is also educational.
Well, yeah, I wonder if there is some sort of educational part of the budget that they have to do it so that they can then get away with, I don't know, hiring an excavator and dumping sand on people who are buried up to their necks on the beach. That sort of thing.
I wish there was, when we learned about the science with the bike pump, that there wasn't a graphic that came over to say, fun fact time.
They should just make that graphic return occasionally just to make us laugh. There's not enough pandering to us with that sort of thing.
Just like give somebody like a villain edit, and then right before they get executed, just have the fun fact time thing going right across the screen.
Fun fact, Karla did worst.
Which is also a sausage.
It is, which is, as we know, one of Portugal's main exports.
I did love Gilles having to explicitly tell them, my suggestion would be to give these 2 Passwagen to the candidate with 2,000 euros in their suitcase. But who am I to say?
It was borderline Peter Yannick moment, that.
Yeah. I'm just a host. I'm not one of you.
How do you think the mole knew which car had the minus 2,000?
I think they were probably briefed that the mole was sitting on whichever side they were on well in advance. Like, I think they probably, say, knew that the person with the money was on the right-hand side, and then they put the contestants in the seats based on that, rather than, putting them wherever they wanted.
Yeah. As we know from paying attention in this episode, Abigail was in the same car that Karla and Kristof departed in.
Mm.
So I'm wondering whether it was that, but I am just, because I've had the brainwave as I was thinking about it, checking what the number plate of Maita's car was, because presumably that wasn't the same one. No, it wasn't. But yeah, Abigail's car was the same as Karla and Kristof's.
Yeah, well, it couldn't have been the same one, because she drove off right
No,
when...
I know, but they might have just driven around the corner is what I'm thinking, and moved us to a different vehicle. Because the behind the scenes also has sort of further exit interviews with the losers, and there is like red lighting in the back to show that they've been executed, that sort of thing. It is actually well worth, as much as I'm taking the piss out of the behind the scenes slightly, it is actually well worth watching those 10 minutes behind the scenes, because they're very interesting. And it sort of gives you a better impression of the people on the show, I would say. There's not a lot of challengey things in there, which is probably for the best.
Speaking of 10 wasted minutes, the group sort of waste time at the start of the challenge asking both of them if they have the money with them, and they both say yes. I'm like, well, I'm glad that's cleared that up.
One of them is lying.
What would you say is the best tactic, just as a candidate, to try and work out who's lying here?
I guess just keep asking, be really quick with follow-up questions on specific details and wait for them to trip up.
Yeah, they kind of ended up at a point where one person would add part of the story, and then the other person would go, yes, that's completely true, except for the bit where it was me who did the thing. I don't really feel like they got anything out of the questioning here.
No, I think it's quite hard with the questions to work out who is telling the truth.
Yeah.
I think there was also that aspect of, if you're an individual in that big group, you want to give everyone else a chance to answer a question and not necessarily go rapid fire per se, which would be the ideal strategy to trip somebody up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting when we know who the mole is to see whether they led the discussion towards Abigail or not.
Oh, I think the mole played a huge role in this.
Yeah, I think they probably played more of a role in the last challenge of the episode. But I think it'll be very interesting to see sort of how the mole directed them towards Abigail.
One thing that jumped out at me is that Vincent would always give details or put forth what happened, and that Abigail was usually the one who said, oh no, he's lying. Oh no, he's lying about this, and not really put forth what she did herself during most of the 10 minutes of what we saw.
I thought it was interesting that Julie came up with the idea to compare how they acted in the cars to how they acted in the fortress, which would have been a good idea, except for the fact that they were in masks in the fortress, so nobody really got to see how they were reacting there.
Yeah, and also the only person who really spoke up after that was Yanis, who didn't interact with either of them.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. So Maxim says that Vincent's more nervous than in the first challenge, but he counters that of course he is, he's fighting for his life and the nerves are going crazy. And it ends up with Isabel, Dries, Wout, Kristof, Yanis and Maxim voting for Abigail, while Jana, Karla and Julie vote for Vincent. It would have been very mean of me to make who did the mole vote for to come back the suspect list bonus question, but instead it is not. It's to do with the final challenge. I was tempted to make it this one just to have a little fun with people, because I like it when it's an uneven split and Fuzzy ends up complaining at me for it. It's happened this week on WIDM. So they then take their tests. Abigail's nervous. She doesn't know anyone's name and she hasn't participated in anything. She'd rather keep Vincent with her, but that's not possible. And he says he doesn't have a main suspect now. He barely has a suspect. The lights go out in the car and they will come back on momentarily. Whoever's light goes green can join the group while the other drives off into the sunset, never to be seen again. Abigail's light ends up being green and she officially joins the group. with her suitcase containing minus 2,000 euros, meaning they earn minus 2,000 euros of 2,000 for this challenge.
Where's the paint?
Yeah, this show has an established law that if you get eliminated in some sort of car, it has to be via the medium of paint that goes all over your suitcase.
Yeah, paint or some sort of aerosol? A light? Lame.
Maybe car detailing is expensive in Portugal.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the BMW dealership after, say, maybe the pasta bomb. Oh, I can never get this out. We can't use this car. How are we going to sell it?
This one's going to need upholstering.
Damn you, Papa Bear Joe DaCosta.
And despite saying in her test confessional that she didn't know anyone's name yet, she knows everyone's names, and it's very impressive how quickly she rattles them off.
Yeah, and she knew their middle names, their last names, the names of their pets.
Apparently, one of the questions on that test was what the mole's last name was.
Wow.
And Vincent said on Café de Mol, I didn't even know everyone's first names, never mind last names.
The mole?
Kristof points out she already knows everybody's names better than Wout. And I mean, A, true, and B, Wout is already at least better at this kind of thing than Logan Saunders is.
How many of your jokes today are just going to be better than Logan Saunders' ones?
Oh, all of them.
So they then welcome Abigail into the group, and in celebrating, Yanis manages to hit himself in the eye with a bottle cap.
If you're Vincent and you're watching the footage of the first execution and you see multiple people say, I'm going to go all in on one person, I wonder how annoyed he is that none of those people were in the car next to him for that quiz.
I cannot wait for the reunion to find out whether those two Passfragans saved Abigail and whether Vincent would have beaten Maita.
Yeah,
I think it's just fascinating.
Because the two Passfragan are just enough of an advantage to where if you properly split on the quiz, including who the actual mole is, you're guaranteed to survive. But also not enough to where if you're silly enough to go all in on one person, you'll definitely be eliminated right then and there.
Yeah. So they wake up on day 4 in Gonsa. At breakfast, Gilles asks for 2 people who want to have a beach day, while the rest will spend their day on the water. And he's standing in the sea at the time. And they choose Karla and Dries to have the nice day at the beach. And Dries even manages to forget his mole book on the table.
The first of many mistakes Dries will make this episode.
I did like Abigail telling the group about herself over breakfast and basically being like, I don't have any specific hobbies. I just like going on vacation and spending money. And I'm like, that is such a mood.
I like whatever is the most expensive thing I can do.
Exactly.
And then it was Karla who said, well, that's why we're at minus 300 euros is because of you.
Or as WIDM calls it, a successful season.
a renewal.
A renaissance, if you will. The rest then drive to the banks of the Douro, and both Abigail and Yanis reveal that they can sing, and the 8 on the water have to get to Karla and Dries to win up to 5,000 euros for the pot. However, they are in a bit of a situation, buried up to their shoulders on a beach 3 kilometers away. For the next 90 minutes, an excavator will be dropping sand until it reaches their chins. All the other group have to do is dig them up before it reaches that point. And to reach them, they have to ride in an inflatable towed by a speedboat, which will leave with 2 candidates at a time. If they fall into the water, they will be out of the challenge, and the boat will return to the start point to pick up 2 more candidates. Along the way are 3 boys, which will ask a trivia question each with 4 possible answers, not that they will be able to see those answers.
I know we kind of skipped over it, but it's just very funny that when Gilles gives them the descriptions of the 2 things, pretty much everybody instantly realizes that the beach is the sucky one this time.
Yeah, it's such an obvious trap. It's like, oh, do you want a nice day at the beach where you're just going to be relaxing?
You're just going to be laying around for a couple of hours.
And like, the behind the scenes shows how deep those holes were that they were dug into. It was a meter deep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like, they were sat up, but yeah, it was a meter deep, both of the graves that they were put into, basically.
Wow.
So yeah, not pleasant for either of them, I would say. So Julie's the first to fall off, while Maxim stays on and returns to the start with the information that they are looking for the Portuguese word for river. Those left on the original beach can call Karla and Dries via a phone in the excavator for a cost of 200 euros per call. After the first call, the driver will put a screen in front of Dries and a joystick in front of Karla, which she can use to control a mini excavator around the beach. They can find the answers buried around the beach and relay them to those on the inflatable.
It would have only been 100 euros per call if they waited until after 7 p.m.
Yeah. Also, just going back to the whole sand timer reveal thing, this fucking show is all I have to say.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes too. Yeah.
No other show in the world can get away with doing a sand timer coming from an excavator.
Genuinely, I sent like that little 30-second clip just before the commercial break to a friend of mine, and she's like, "What the fuck is this show? I need to watch this."
I know we're comparing this season to loads of old seasons, so far at least, but it reminds me of the reveal of the ice cream challenge in Sicily and the mouth-directed joystick there. You just go, what am I even watching? Who comes up with this?
What drugs did they take right before they brainstormed ideas?
So Yanis and Abigail are the next to get sent out. The first board is uncovered for question 1, but it's the answer that they've already tried. Yanis and Abigail both fall off the raft after answering incorrectly again, with a very subtle Wilhelm scream in the edit. And as a result, the others don't even find out which answer they guessed.
Who knew that Alfonso Ribeiro was the Portuguese word for river?
Although, to be fair, when you're looking at, being buried up to your neck and having a remote control excavator with your mouth to look at quiz question answers to relate to somebody who can rescue you, but they have to rescue you without falling off a raft. I mean, by this show's standards, it's not unusual.
Dries, this might rank pretty high up in België history for the worst single challenge performance I think I've ever seen.
I don't know if I mean, spoilers for the end of the episode, he's fairly high up on my suspects. I don't know whether he is the mole or not, or whether he's just very, very silly.
Yeah, I can't tell yet. Is he the mole? Because as soon as this challenge was going on, I'm thinking, this is the moliest performance I've seen in a while. But then he just kept piling on throughout the episode. I'm thinking, maybe he's just really bad at these challenges and just not figuring things out. Especially like Karla has to say, well, it's multiple choice, right? He's like, oh, I don't think those A, B, C, or D mean anything. Especially when they're asking him for the order, and he gives them a different order for the Portuguese river options, where what's A, B, C, and D, he just randomly switches around to what he can think of off the top of his head. I'm thinking, how do you not realize that if it's a multiple choice question, you have to pick A, B, C, or D, you have to indicate what the order is. You completely screwed them over.
The thing is, it's not just that one, because he then completely buggers up the calls for the second question. Like, he doesn't tell them corks an answer for, 3 calls that we see.
Yeah, they had to keep calling him back, and then the other side of that is that somebody in the group of 8 who caught on that all they had to do was just keep calling Dries, knowing he wouldn't give them the relevant information they needed, therefore they can pile on another call and just take advantage of Dries's complete ineptitude at this challenge to deduct money from the group. Because I was thinking that would be a good strategy if you're the mole.
I think the thing that makes me think he's just dumb as opposed to, playing dumb as the mole is like when he messes up that first one where he mispronounces Ribeiro, does them in the wrong order, and doesn't tell them the letters. The correct answer is the only one he puts in the right order. Like, I think if they'd taken that order as gospel and then picked Rio, they would have got it right. Like, because I think Rio was C and that was the third one he listed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, I feel like if you're gonna mess that up as the mole, I feel like you probably wouldn't get the important bit right anyway.
That's true. That's a good point.
I am well aware that I am not the person to talk about this, but I think people online are slightly overthinking this challenge.
Yeah.
Because all of the chat on the multiple Discords that we're in who discuss this show, and you won't have seen much of this, Saunders, because, spoilers, a lot of the Bothers Bar one is, haha, Saunders sucks at this.
It's true.
A lot of the chat about this challenge has basically been, the mole won't want to give them any money for this. But I don't think that's true.
just less money.
The Mole always, especially in the Flanders version, the Mole doesn't want to leave them with nothing unless it's a big brash move like Lenny with the €10,000 bid. The Mole wants to minimize the amount of money that they get because ultimately it's not a satisfying TV product if they win like €2,000 WIDM. In the same way that the third challenge, it's not a satisfying TV product if everyone just goes, yeah, we're not going to press that button. We'll have €2,500 and one person from each group will go. That's not interesting. The Mole as an arm of production, their main role, yes, is to reduce the amount of money in the pot or minimize the amount of money in the pot, but it's also to make an interesting and compelling television product. And I think people are thinking about it slightly wrongly. They're going into it with a WIDM mindset when they should go into it with the Flanders one.
Yeah, like they still lost a lot of money on this challenge.
Yeah, the Mole...
This was not a success.
Assuming the Mole isn't Dries and that Dries is just inept, the Mole was on that side of 8, and they presumably did the missing 2 calls that we haven't seen, and probably did something cocky to the camera at the same time, but also, presumably, their goal in that was to, yes, get them on the plus side, but sort of give them half money and go, yeah, you can have a little bit in the pot, I suppose.
Still find it funny that it went from Ribeiro to Ribera, and then somebody else, I think Woot or Maxima said, did you say Riviera? Yeah, Riviera. That's right.
No, it turns out Portugal's biggest export is Ribena. How did you do at the quiz?
I mean, I knew Escudo, obviously. It's one of those... Currencies before the euro is one of those quiz topics that comes up all the time. And I'm pretty sure most of the pre-euro currencies were the sort of thing I had on flashcards on for Jeopardy.
Yeah.
I would have probably, having the options, guessed at Rio, knowing it was the most likely option. And something in the back of my mind said that Cork was the right answer, because I think it might have come up on WIDM. So I maybe would have gone 3 for 3. I probably, knowing if I'd had all 4 options, I probably would have got 3 for 3.
Yeah.
Escudo, I would have gotten 2.
Yeah, I definitely would have gotten Escudo. I probably would have gotten Rio. Like, it would have taken me a little while to think, okay, Brazil speaks Portuguese, Rio de Janeiro means River of January, etc. Like, I would have gotten to it eventually if you gave me a couple of seconds, but, like, I don't know if in the heat of the moment I would have thought of that. Cork, I may not have known, but I definitely wouldn't have picked sausage.
First time for everything.
And just for the sausage that Dries was talking about, that's the sausage from Calabria, like a very specific region in southern Italy. Like, how did that word come to his mind to associate with Portugal? It's not even close geographically. And it's a very specific one, which I thought was like, that's like, is that supposed to be a hidden clue to reference that specific Calabrian sausage?
It's probably like how Nando's tried selling itself as Portuguese for a little while there, when I'm like, it's South African.
Yeah, on Café de Mol, Caroline from Sicily, remember her, who was on with Bernard this week, your mate Saunders.
Oh, yeah.
She was also one of the many people who didn't know that Escudo was the Portuguese currency before the euro. Because there was like 3 or 4 people on Café de Mol who said, yeah, I didn't know that. And I'm like, how? It's a fairly common quiz question. So yeah, they do pick C, which is the correct answer, which is Isabel and Jana picking that. The second question is what Portugal's the biggest exporter of, and they blindly pick A, at which point Isabel falls. Dries thinks that Induja is Portuguese, not Italian, and Gilles is surprisingly sarcastic towards him on the voiceover, I must say. Even for his standards.
Yeah, Dries is right. It is a spicy sausage, just it's Italian.
Kristof falls off when they answer the sausage, and Jana and Maxim get it correct when they answer Cork. And for the final question, Karla and Dries need to drive their digger up to the lookout tower. When they get there, they see 3 boards saying that the final answers are buried on the starting beach, which is incredibly mean even by this show's standards. Because it took forever for her to drive it up to the lookout tower. It was a good 2 or 3 minutes that it took her of sort of leaning forward on this mini excavator to drag herself up the beach, and then you just see, the answers are not here, and it's like, oh, you pricks.
Yeah, I mean, her chin and her jaw must have been really sore by that point.
I mean, it almost took long enough for Logan Saunders to realise he bet on the wrong horse this week.
3 times.
So the last question is what the Portuguese currency was before the euro. Jana falls off, leaving Maxim and Wout as the only rescuers left. They only really have enough time for one more attempt and ring to see if Karla and Dries know the answer, but they are on their own. They answer Escudo, and the boat doesn't speed up, meaning they were correct. And they do get to Karla and Dries in time to free them and find out that while they didn't win all 5,000 euros, they did make 12 calls, 10 of which we saw, for a total of 2,600 euros of 5,000 for this challenge.
Do we think the timer for this challenge was like real?
To have it synced up, I was thinking about that too. That's a lot of logistics to make sure it goes perfectly, especially you can't control how long it takes for the boat to reset and have somebody get back on the boat and then coordinate real time with the excavator people. May have been a bit lenient.
Yeah, they said the boat was going to wait 1 minute at every changeover, but then I was like, it takes them longer than a minute to find out about the answers being buried on the first beach, dig them up, get to the boat, all that sort of stuff. But then at the end, they only have 5 minutes to, do the entire course, which involved traveling 3 kilometers behind a boat, pausing to answer the final question, even though it's a total guess at that point, and then digging up the captives. Like, I don't think it was possible for them to actually do that in the last 5 minutes.
My suspicion is as long as they were on the beach before that last 5 minutes ended, then probably the sand stops at that point.
Yeah.
I think knowing this show as we do at this point, having covered a ridiculous amount of seasons, I suspect that the finale of this challenge would have ended up being the excavator opening the jaws properly and just dumping the final load on them. That's the sort of thing they would absolutely do.
Do you think the more stricter condition was that the challenge is over if everyone falls off the boat rather than the time limit itself?
I think certainly after what happened with Abigail and obviously what happened with them not winning the 10,000 euros to begin with, I think whether it was the Mol or production, they probably wanted them to win some money this episode and some money in this challenge.
Especially when they knew what was coming up after this.
Yeah, because I'm pretty convinced that the Mol played heavily in that final challenge. And I think they probably had the wiggle room to play heavily because they already had the 2,300 euros in the pot. It's not fun for anyone having an episode where they end up with 1,700 euros and then the second episode where they end up with minus 300, is it?
Hey, you haven't watched WIDM then.
That's why I said it's not fun for anybody. I'm a WIDM defender, but yeah, I can't really defend this week's episode. It was boring as all hell. I don't know whether it was because I watched België first and then WIDM, which doesn't usually happen. So I'm like, I've seen a really good episode of Mol, and now I've seen this. Yay.
And they travel a really far distance because at the start of day 5, they're in Sao Tome and Principe. How the hell did that happen?
At a creepy 18th century villa with pictures on the wall that I think Yanis says he can't sleep with.
Because it's not Robbie Williams.
Yeah.
Well, in the cars, Kristof was bragging that there was no Mol says, and I'm like, that explains so much about how this episode ends.
Yeah. He just picked none of the above to all of the answers.
Yeah. Can you imagine? That's the big twist. I figured it out. I'm going all in on there being no Mol.
And Yanis hides in a cupboard and scares Julie when he jumps out, at which point her and Yana, the next morning, wake everyone up with pots and pans like they're Josh Martinez, purely to get back at Yanis for being a dick to her the night before.
No, that's the end of the Josh Martinez references.
At breakfast the next morning, there are 5 croissants and 5 pastel de natas and a sign saying to choose wisely. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and especially so today, and it's Yanis, Maxim, Wout, Julie and Yana choosing pastel de nata, while Isabel, Dries, Abigail, Karla and Kristof chose croissants. And I don't want to say that this show influences me at all, but as soon as I stopped watching this episode, I did look up a recipe to see if I could make pastel de nata, because I really want a pastel de nata now. I love them anyway.
I mean, pastel de nata are really nice, but also croissants is croissants.
Also, knowing this show as we do, it feels like maybe there's two schools of thought here, and I'm going to sound like a complete dick when I say this. There's two schools of thought
You
here.
always do.
Either croissants is a clue because the mole was on the cross last week, or pastel de nata is the clue, and it's someone in that group because Jill said that was the only reason they went to Portugal in the Cafe de Mol kickoff special. And I know that doesn't narrow it down at all, but it might narrow it down in coming weeks. And I'm trying so hard not to sort of go down the rabbit holes that I usually do and overthink everything. But, overthinking here.
Annual tradition.
Yep. I know Jill told me not to overthink, and I've managed 46 weeks of the year, but not 47.
No.
And I assume both of you picked up that this was going to be a double elimination as soon as they made everybody divide into 2 groups of 5 right before the execution.
Well, I suspected it would be anyway, even before I knew the results, but also I did go into watching this episode knowing exactly who went home because Bindles told me.
Oh, so that.
But yeah, I did suspect last week that it was going to be a double anyway. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a double alongside Abigail or Vincent, but yeah, I suspected it was going to be a double of some description.
Have they ever had a double elimination episode delayed later than episode 2 or 3? They usually try to do it as early on as they can when they do more than 10 people.
Yeah, no, I think Belgian law kind of has this whole thing where they need 8 players in episode 3 for some reason, and I'm guessing it's probably like a budget thing, because this show sort of spends its money on its prize rather than on contestant appearance fees, WIDM. But I think I don't mind that the double elimination happens early.
No, I think it's better to happen early than late because
Yeah,
this show, because it is strictly one execution every week, with a couple of exceptions, obviously, they need to get back into that schedule as soon as possible. I think it hurts a lot less if you do the double elimination early than if you say wait till final 7, final 6, where you go, oh shit, I actually really like all these people. I'm devastated when someone goes home now.
And also, it's better from a storytelling perspective if you have fewer people left.
Yeah, because it's much more abrupt if you did it, say, mid-season. If you do it in the position where they always do some sort of non-elimination twist, if you did a double elimination there, I think it'd be a lot tougher to sort of reconcile, especially as there's usually some sort of jiggery-pokery which involves people inevitably costing the pot money for their own safety.
Yeah, it's the rare show that realizes you don't need 17 people left in the final episode to have an interesting storyline.
Survivor.
I think if you have too many people left late in the season, you sort of rob the storyline of a little bit of finality. And it's been happening for years. Even things like Big Brother, our version, started with a final 2 and then eventually went to a final 3. But when you compare that to Big Brother UK, I think started with a final 3, some seasons ended up with 7 at the end. I'm it feels like you're ending the season, weeks and weeks too early in that sort of situation. And I like that Belgium doesn't do that and basically yes, we have too many people. Let's sort that out now rather than drag them on and have a final 4, a final 5, whatever. Because we still need, the final reveal where it's like a winner, a loser, a mole. I like that they get that out of the way early.
I've made this argument many times over the years, but the main difference between WIDM and België is that WIDM is the story of the mole, België is the story of the group. And I think a twist early on, like a double execution, hits the group hard and is a much better storytelling device when you're talking about the group rather than about the mole. Because the mole isn't affected really by a double execution. I think the mole maybe wants to be on the winning team in a sort of split of a double execution like this, but I don't think narratively it affects the mole as much as it affects the group. And it's a brilliant narrative device. Arguably, don't do it every season because it becomes predictable, Survivor, but it's a brilliant storytelling device and a brilliant narrative device to have something like that impacts the group in a show like België, where it is the story of the group with, oh yeah, there's a side of sabotage and a side of trying to find the mole, and people being devastated that they can't stay because they want to be a part of the group, not because they're necessarily on the right track of finding out who the mole is.
I also just think it works better earlier in the season.
Yeah. Oh, it does, yeah.
you can't really do a double elimination at Final Five.
No.
But, when you've got 10 people left, sure, you've got too many people. Let's get rid of some.
I mean, some versions that have ripped off Belgium have done a double execution at Final Five. Germany 5, for example, did a sort of fake double execution at Final Five. It was 2 red screens and then one person could come back, but one of them was the mole, so it was actually rigged. Again, I have many thoughts about that show.
I'm surprised that franchise is still around.
It's not. They got cancelled again.
Well, then I'm not surprised.
So after playing card games in a cafe, they drive to Casa de Sazim. And I can say that because that is in the behind-the-scenes thing. They went to a cafe on the morning of this execution and sort of had food and played card games with each other while they were waiting to hate each other. And Casa de Sazim is the site for tonight's execution, and it is a double execution. They are divided by their breakfast choice, and as it stands, one person from each group will be going home. However, they can change that. There will be 5 duels, and if one team wins more duels than the other, both eliminated players will come from the same group. The Croissant group chooses to stick to the plan of one person going home from each group, and it's fair to say the Pastel de Nata one did not. There are irritatingly so many suspicious people on that side.
Yeah, I think they kind of got a little bit screwed with the teams getting divided the way they were. Because on one hand, you've got all of the interesting people, and then on the other hand, you've got Wout and a bunch of people who sort of feel too competent to make this interesting.
Yeah, the mole was 100% steering that conversation.
Yeah.
Because as soon as, and I'm, spoilers, really suspicious of Wout for this, as soon as he sets the tone in that first duel of going, no, I'm going to hit the button, no, we're not playing for the group, no, we're not going to get that 500 euros, and oh, conveniently, Kristof, you might get a pass frog. As soon as he sets the tone, everyone else in his group is emboldened to do the exact same thing. And whether that was Wout leading it, or whether that was someone in his group pushing him to do that on the first duel, that is mole behaviour.
Yeah. And he also made a point of telling his group about the Passfragen as soon as he got back, which I don't think he really has any reason to do otherwise.
No.
And then everyone else is inclined to follow along because it absolves them of all guilt in terms of whatever action they take.
Yeah, because the actual play here, if you want to earn money for the group, is yes, do that on the first one if you're in that inevitably winning group, but then play for the group after that. So nobody hits it on the second one, and then nobody feels like they have to hit it on the third one, and nobody feels like they have to hit it on the fourth one. And there's still the ambiguity, so you can still get the final 500 euros out of it. And then, yeah, maybe the other group do end up leveling it up on that last one because it's their only chance. But you still get a guaranteed at least 1,500 euros out of that. As soon as that group decide to play for themselves, no money is ever going to be on the table. And the mole has to have been on that group. And that's what, in the end, is dropping Isabel down my suspect slightly, is the fact that I don't feel like she pushed hard enough for her group to do that we saw. Because it's the classic mole play.
And then the lie that Dries tells in this challenge seemed completely pointless to me, no matter... It would just draw unnecessary attention onto himself.
I just love how badly that losing team played this challenge. Because you have Karla, God love her. I didn't suspect her at all last week. I didn't suspect her at all this week. She only did that hula hooping out of pure unadulterated spite to prove she could.
Yeah.
But it's a terrible idea and a terrible strategy.
It looked cool, though.
It did. And she ended up doing it as Dennis did his outro on Café de Mol. He said, we've got a hula hoop here. Could you hula hoop while I do my outro? And I'm like...
How did she do it the whole time?
It was like 30 seconds, I'd say. It was a decent chunk of time she did it for. It was quite impressive.
I wish after she was executed that she had a hula hoop the whole time while Jill was giving his goodbye speech to both of them. And then, say the hula hoop is slipping, Jill can just say, wait, I'm not done talking yet. You can't let it fall yet.
There's still money to be earned from me doing this. So the first duel is about strength, and it is Wout and Kristof who are sent. Before each duel, they'll have the option to press the button in front of them. If no one presses, the score stays the same, and the group earn 500 euros, and they've got 10 seconds to decide. And if someone presses, only the winning group will earn a point. Wout presses after 4 seconds, and they will be dueling. He has to tear 100 sheets of paper in half as fast as possible, and does it in 6.5 seconds. Kristof then gets the choice, either try and do it faster or forfeit the point for a pass frag. What would you have done in that case if you were Kristof?
I think how well Wout did probably would have changed my thought process. Like, I think if he'd done a little bit worse, I probably would have tried. I think he was sort of right in that middle ground where it's like, I might be able to do it, but I think it's probably better off just to go for the pass fragen in that situation.
Yeah, because assuming that the mole isn't Isabel or Julie, the mole presumably has practiced whichever duel they did here.
Yeah.
So we may get a scene of Wout practicing tearing 100 sheets of paper in half. I think he could have done it faster than he did. He stumbled on the first rip, I noticed.
Yeah, I would say that was, out of all the challenges that happened, that was the toughest one for the other person to overcome.
Yeah.
Granted, I've never personally tried to rip 100 pieces of paper in half as quickly as possible.
Well, we know what we're trying at the finale, Saunders.
I was about to say, I was just thinking a minute ago, we should get a hula hoop and practice hula hooping in front of Kenneopolis.
Actually, thinking about it, there's a decathlon next to Kinnepolis, isn't there? We actually could, in theory, make this happen. Although you would have to carry the hula hoop around Europe with you, because I'm not carrying it.
Well, yeah, I would just, I don't know, is there like a school nearby to donate it to?
Yeah, Gilles, if you're listening, Saunders will hula hoop if you provide him with one. You know as well as I do that we're calling you bluff here. Provide a hula hoop and Saunders will use it. So the second duel is the hula hoop one, which is flexibility. Karla immediately volunteers and Yana is sent to. She immediately tells Karla about the pass frag and the forfeit, which again is very interesting behavior from Yana.
Rats him out.
Yeah, because ratting him out makes that team a lot more suspicious of everyone else's actions. It felt like the mole was definitely puppeteering from that group.
Yeah.
Because if the losing team know that Kristof played for himself, then anyone other than Karla is going to go, well, I'm going to play for myself then. If no one else gives a shit about the money, why should I?
Yeah, and which makes Dries' lie that much more confusing when he knows the other team is outing anybody who lies about what went on in the challenge.
Yeah. And Yana doesn't even let Jill start counting before she presses the button, which is hilarious. Their duel is, as we've alluded to hula hoop for as long as possible. Yana manages 7.1 seconds. Karla doesn't even think about taking the pass frag.
She just laughs.
She laughs. She wants to prove a point. She does indeed prove a point by doubling Yana's time, and she could have gone a lot longer.
Yeah. And Jill's like, yeah, we do have a double execution later to eliminate you, Karla, so you gotta wrap up.
The third duel's about timing, and it's Dries and Yanis who are sent. They start shit-talking each other, which is delightful. I'm assuming it was fairly playful, but they start properly shit-talking each other.
I have a sense of rhythm. That would surprise me.
Yeah. Did you sing Robbie Williams, Dries? I do not think you sang Robbie Williams.
You'll be meeting the angels later, bitch.
Yeah, Robbie Williams trying to trash talk people on the streets using his own song titles.
I will reign supreme. I'll watch you come undone.
That sounds like a felony.
And you would know. Their duel is to press the button again as close to 10 seconds as possible. Yanis sets the time at 8.493 seconds. Dries chooses the pass frag and also chooses to claim to his group that Yanis pressed at 9.4 seconds. The fourth duel is reflexes, and they send Maxim and Abigail. They both press, but Maxim is just a fraction of a second quicker, and their duel is to catch 7 poles as they randomly fall from a structure 1 second apart. He catches 4, and she chooses the pass frag, condemning her team to the execution.
So is it just me, or is 8.4 seconds a fairly easy time to beat on that timer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that felt probably the most doable of the four of them to beat.
Yeah, it didn't feel like Yanis was really trying.
Yeah, and Isabel really cusses him out for it, saying, what? It was 8.4 instead of 9.4? You didn't even want to try and give us a fighting chance to get 3 out of the 5 points? Because then Abigail would have definitely tried to catch the bars there. Because they would have been 2-2, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if Abigail would have. I think she still would have gone for the pass frag.
Because I think it was implied that the second person had to beat the first person to.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, like it wasn't,
It wasn't like tie or better?
No, it was a tie. The first person won.
Yeah. I think it was in the behind the scenes stuff. Abigail said basically she took the pass frag because she was a day behind everyone already, or 2 days behind everyone already. Like, she was in a bad position and she needed all the help she could get. So I think she would have taken the pass frag regardless if she was in that position.
Yeah, at the end of the challenge, when Isabel is really on Abigail's case, I think it was Maxim who jumped in and said, guys, she missed out on the first day. Of course she's going to take the pass frag, and if she wasn't confident in the challenge at all. But collecting 5 out of 7 was definitely doable. But Drees's, that was just ridiculous to not go for it and put that much more pressure on Abigail. Because at that point, it was just her saying, "Well, we're not in a good. This isn't looking good for me. The group isn't really only Karla's really playing for the group, it seems. So I got to take my chances here too, because I got to survive." 2 of 4 people, one of the other 2 could be the mole, and I wasn't even here for pretty much the entire first episode.
Yeah. I think as a challenge, it doesn't quite work because really the duels only happen as like the plan C scenario. Because like if the button isn't pushed, there's no drama. But then if somebody forfeits and takes the pass frag and you miss out on the duel, so it's not quite as interesting. So a lot of this challenge is just watching people do things, which isn't necessarily the most exciting. But all the drama with the pass frag and sort of made it work anyway.
I do think it's interesting that at this point in the season, of the 6 challenges we've seen, 4 of them have basically been, let's try and sow a bit of mistrust into this group.
And it's working. Because this group is a mess. Because even during the boat challenge, they didn't really do all that great in that as a team. And there was no individual advantage being provided in that challenge, and they did not work together all that well.
Yeah. We didn't find the Slimstermans, but we did end up finding the Slextermans.
Yeah.
And his name is Logan Saunders.
So yeah, when the group reunite, Isabel and Karla are both pretty incredulous at Abigail taking the pass frag, and Dries when they realise that he lied to them as well. And the fact that nobody even played for the group whatsoever means they earn nothing of €2,500 for that challenge, €600 of €9,500 for the episode, and €2,300 of $25,500 for the season so far.
Yeah, this group is not doing great.
It is now time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole who have no sleeves goes home except for the mole who can never go home. Yanis, Maxim, Wout, Julie and Jana don't have to take the test, and Kristof, Dries and Abigail all have 1 pass frag each. Dries finds it hard to estimate his chances, but a green screen would mean a lot. Karla doesn't fancy her chances either. 2 of the 5 are going home, and one of those people in the group is her mole. Isabel says it's clear that the mole was in the other group because they knew there was temptation coming. Kristof says the mole needed to make sure the button was pressed. Then the game was on. Jana thinks that Kristof could be the mole as he steers things. No one blames him for taking the pass frag. Julie says that Isabel's reaction to the pass frag felt rehearsed. Maxim says Julie sometimes acts simple, even though she's super smart and super athletic, and then she dropped straight away on the raft. Wout says that things went wrong with Dries on the phone. It was suspicious. Yanis says Maxim and Wout found the answers, and Maxim was the one who squeezed in another call to find out whether the answers were correct or not. Abigail says that Maxim pushed hard for her to escape the car. She feels like there may have been an ulterior motive. And Dries says he hopes to get a window seat on the plane home.
Well, at least he's realistic.
Yeah. I mean, with 0 ulterior motive, the fact that he's still in my team, I really hope that Dries sticks around for a while, just because I think he's very entertaining bumbling through life.
You just see Jill at the start of the next episode. Well, you have now lost a further €30 because Dries paid for a preferred seat on the plane for Brussels Airlines, so you lost another €30 from the pot.
Shield says that it's a small group for the execution. 5 of them are safe already, and 3 of the vulnerable ones have pass fragging. Karla gets the instant red screen and is sent packing before Isabel gets the green. Kristof is then the 3rd name typed in, and he is also red, wiping out Logan's entire pool team.
Yep. An entire civilization destroyed.
And you know the best thing? If you'd not drafted Vincent so high last week, you probably would have escaped the wipeout this week because you would have had Yana more than likely. And Karla tells Kristof that he was her mole. She took a gamble and lost. He says the stakes are so high and the odds are so low in this sort of situation, and there's nothing you can do about it, really.
So does that mean that Karla went all in on Kristof? Because if so, that was really stupid. It's only one pass front that the others had.
I'll defend her slightly here in that I think in a situation like this where you're one of only two people with an inherent disadvantage, you kind of have to be a little bit more gutsy. Maybe not going all in.
But it's 1 point advantage only, though. And that includes somebody who wasn't there for the first 2 days of the game.
I think you play a little bit harder in a situation like this where you personally have an inherent disadvantage. And you're one of a very small number of people with an inherent disadvantage.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting that she got a proper eulogy from everybody. And then Kristof basically just got from both Jules and Giannis that he liked the soccer sitcom, and that's all they mentioned about him.
Yeah, he was nice. Now bye.
He just gets roasted about it nonstop.
Yeah.
All 271 episodes.
So next time there's a face-first zip line, sheep, cars, electrocutions, fardo, and trumpets.
A trumpet?
That was a fun episode.
It was.
You know what else is fun? For the 13th time in 16 seasons, Logan has lost someone at the first opportunity on the pool. And yes, I did the numbers. Given that I have done 16 pools with you, Saunders, I have only lost the first person 4 times, I think it is. And twice that was in a double execution with you. It's quite impressive at this point. For the first time ever, though, you lose multiple people in the form of your entire team.
It's like a firing range.
Luckily for you, that means you inherit both leftovers in the form of Abigail and Yana. Bindle still has Isabel, Julian, Maxim, and I have wowed Yanis and Dries. Thank you to everyone who did first suspicions. Bindle's team was by far the most suspicious to everyone, with an average of 4.78 out of 12, followed by my team with 6.02, Logan's original team with 6.07, and Logan's new team with 7.7. Everyone apart from Abigail and Vincent had at least one first suspicion. The suspicion order was Maxim with 3.6, then Isabel with 4.13, Wout with 4.4, Kristof with 4.67, Karla with 5.07, Yana with 6.07, Julian and Dries both on 6.6, Yanis on 7.07, Vincent on 8.47, and Abigail on 9.33. And adding our scores in moves Wout up to second. After the absolute clusterfuck of the week, 3 people, Joseph, Brian, and Sandra, lost their first suspicion in the form of Karla, while 2, Jack and our very own Logan Saunders, lost theirs in Kristof. It is the best possible start for 2 people, Femke and yours truly, as we both have 39 points left on our suspicions. And in fact, if Abigail is the next person to go, both of us will be on a perfect score so far. On the other end of the scale is just one person, poor unfortunate horseboy himself, as Logan has a score of 57 points, 4 whole points ahead of his nearest sucky challenger.
What a sad little life, Logan Saunders.
I didn't have any fun writing these notes whatsoever. You can also give us your suspicions on the Brothers Bar suspect list for both WIDM and the Mol België each week at suspectlist.rtvheroes.com or at the link in our bio. The bonus questions this week are for België, what did the mole pick for breakfast, either croissant or pastel de nata, and WIDM is in which round the mole heard the Maasai story, either first, second, or third. Flanders' suspicions last week were Yanis on 27%, Maxim on 14, Kristof on 11, Yana on 10, Karla on 9, Wout on 8, Isabel on 7, Julie on 6, Dries on 5, Vincent on 2, and Abigail on 1%. And the Café de Mol instant suspicions for week 2 were Maxim on 21, Yanis on 19, Dries and Wout on 13, Isabel on 12, Yana on 8, and Abigail and Julie on 7. Final 2 questions. Who do we suspect and who is going home next week?
Let's see if I can get it right from now on.
I'm not sure it really matters who you suspect, Saunders, to be honest.
So my suspect list, which I had prior to execution, was Julie, Wout, Dries, Yanis, then Kristof, then Yana, then Maxim, then Isabel, then Abigail, then Karla. And I think Abigail's going to go home next week.
Bindles?
Well, after that, I'm glad I've got Julie down the bottom. So I had Isabel, Maxim, Yana, Abigail, Giannis, Dries, and Julie. I think Giannis is going home next week. I feel like sort of it's not that he's like bad at the game. I feel like all the content he's getting is sort of like outside of the group sort of stuff. Like I feel like he's basically just doing his own thing, where everybody else is sort of like, I guess, grouping together a little bit more.
I think with the Cafe de Mol introductions to Yanis and Yana, I can definitely see why Yana was picked as a threat to them all.
Yeah.
I still kind of don't get why Yanis was. And yes, he has an athletic hobby, and yes, he's good at singing.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stand out as much as Yana does in the introduction, because Yana's like, yeah, I did paracommando shit as a kid, which is interesting. My suspicions were Wout, Yanis, Maxim, Isabel, Dries, Yana, Julie, Abigail. And I think either Julie or Abigail are going next week. And I also must point out that my who's going home suspicion last week was Karla, with an outside chance of Kristof. So I called both executions. Just,
Bravo.
putting it out there to be gloating. I'm well aware that I'm setting myself up for a fall inevitably here, but, this has been a very good week for suspicions for me. It doesn't usually happen. Anything else to say?
We didn't really cover it very much this week, but Maxim seems nice.
Yeah, he got a much bigger edit this week than he did last week, I would say.
Yeah.
Hence why he shot up my suspect list, because I'm like, why are you showing me this person?
And I think it's interesting that, like, remember how we had the scene in Sicily where, like, everybody just jumped on Lynn for some... I can't remember what it was. But, like, it kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable because Lynn was the only person there who wasn't white.
Yeah.
I think we were getting sort of very close to that situation with Abigail at the end this week. And I kind of liked that Maxim jumped in to defend her a little bit.
Yeah. I think the difference here, I would say, is that Dries was always also getting in the deck, arguably less.
Yeah.
But as soon as Dries's lie was exposed, I think both Isabel and Karla were like, nah, fuck you too, Dries.
Yeah.
There's a reason why our hands have two middle fingers and not just one.
Yeah, we didn't really get that with the Lynn situation in Sicily.
Yeah.
It was just everyone piling on Lynn.
And I think the reason why people were thinking, Abigail could be the mole, a lot of people were saying at the start of the episode, is because, of what happened in the Arizona season, right? Where, well, no matter what the twist is, that person can still be the mole.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting they made a point of highlighting, well, the mole could still be in one of the cars, they just got a perfect score.
Yeah, I agree with that, but also I'm not sure they play with fire in that way, because it's a different situation to the Arizona one. The Arizona one was played completely straight. The mole would have just been skipped, I presume, if they still had too few points. But it was not rigged in the slightest. Whereas I think if the mole's skipping an entire episode, basically, and then it's a rigged twist to begin the next episode, I don't think that goes down as well.
Yeah.
I think there's more questions coming out of that, and it's much more difficult for them to justify compared to the Arizona situation, where I think they got away with it, but I'm not sure they'd try something like that again. So, thank you for listening to our Mol België Season 14 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for the newest mole in Portugal. Don't forget you can contact us on pretty much every social media platform that isn't TikTok, where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us at contact@rtvwarriors.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Don't forget you can also give us your suspects by playing Suspect List at the link in our bio. Thank you, as always, to the Legion of Subtitlers. We will see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
I've had it up to here with you, Logan Saunders.